suggested that this barrel could have been as old as 1740. Well, 1740 is an aha date because that's, of course, is right around the time of the Duc d'Anville expedition.
230 years after the mystery first began, Oak Island still refuses to give up its secrets. For more than 2 centuries, treasure hunters have poured millions of dollars into excavations, drilled countless boreholes, and tested one theory after another. Yet the island has never revealed a definitive answer. Now, a new discovery is capturing worldwide attention. During the latest investigation, researchers detected what appears to be a massive underground stone vault, with some estimates suggesting it could contain treasures worth as much as $250 million. But the real story isn't the rumored treasure, it's the evidence. After months of advanced ground-penetrating surveys, borehole drilling, core sampling, and underground mapping, scientists uncovered a series of unusual geometric signals that don't match any known natural formation. Some researchers believe they may have found a human-made structure hidden deep beneath the island, while others insist that only laboratory analysis and independent verification can confirm what lies below. Until then, Oak Island's greatest secret remains buried underground. In today's video, we'll break down every major piece of evidence, every scientific report, and every recent discovery in simple, easy-to-understand language to find out whether the world's most famous treasure mystery is finally on the verge of being solved. But before we begin, if you enjoy real archaeological mysteries, hidden treasures, and fascinating discoveries backed by evidence, make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell icon, and never miss our upcoming investigations. Now, let's uncover what may be the biggest breakthrough in Oak Island's 230-year history. This version is designed to create a stronger hook, build suspense naturally, and transition smoothly into the main story while keeping the subscribe prompt engaging instead of interruptive. For decades, one question has continued to fascinate treasure hunters and historians alike. Does Oak Island really hide a treasure that no one has ever managed to uncover? Thousands of excavations have been carried out, enormous amounts of money have been invested, and countless theories have come and gone. Yet every investigation seemed to end the same way, with more questions than answers. This time, however, the story took a different turn. During the latest phase of the search, researchers focused on an area that had been producing unusual underground readings for months. Advanced ground surveys, borehole drilling, and core sampling had all pointed toward the same location. Initially, the team assumed they had found another empty underground cavity, something that had happened many times before on Oak Island, but the new evidence refused to fit that explanation. As additional data was collected, the same underground boundaries continued to appear in scan after scan. Samples recovered from different depths also supported the earlier findings. Even more remarkable, separate survey teams, working independently, produced nearly identical results. What had once seemed like a possibility was now becoming a pattern that demanded serious attention. Rather than rushing ahead, the excavation slowed dramatically. Every decision was made with extreme caution because disturbing the site too soon could destroy valuable evidence that had remained hidden for centuries. Then came the report that sparked worldwide discussion. According to the preliminary findings, researchers suggested that the underground structure could be part of a large sealed stone chamber. If future investigations confirm that theory, and if the chamber contains valuable artifacts, the estimated value could reach as much as $250 million. That announcement quickly fueled speculation across the globe. Could this finally be the legendary treasure vault people have searched for over 2 centuries? Or is the underground structure hiding something completely unexpected? At this stage, only further scientific investigation can provide the answer. Months of scientific investigation. Every important archaeological discovery depends on careful research before excavation, and Oak Island was no exception. Instead of digging aggressively, the team devoted months to analyzing every piece of evidence. They understood that one careless move could erase historical clues forever, so every signal had to be verified before any major excavation continued. The investigation began with extensive deep ground scanning. The same area was surveyed repeatedly to determine whether unusual formations truly existed beneath the surface or whether the readings were simply natural geological features. Next came borehole drilling at carefully selected locations. Each drilling operation produced rock and soil samples that were individually labeled, documented, and sent for laboratory analysis to ensure every layer could be examined accurately. Researchers also collected long cylindrical core samples from deep underground. These cores allowed scientists to study the geological history beneath the island while keeping the surrounding ground largely undisturbed. The work didn't end there. Engineers combined newly collected scan results with historical drilling records to create a detailed underground map of the entire search area. Every new anomaly was compared against previous data, and whenever an unusual signal appeared, the location was surveyed again, using different instruments. Nothing was accepted as evidence until multiple investigations reached the same conclusion. That careful approach explains why progress appeared slow. Excavation equipment was stopped repeatedly, so archaeologists and geologists could study every new discovery before allowing work to continue. After months of patient analysis, a consistent pattern gradually emerged, one that convinced the research team they might be dealing with something far more significant than an ordinary underground cavity. The unusual signals beneath the island. Following months of testing and verification, investigators finally reached a turning point. The latest underground scans revealed a combination of features unlike anything previously recorded at the site. At first, scientists considered the possibility of equipment interference or naturally fractured rock. However, repeated surveys continued to produce nearly identical results, making those explanations increasingly difficult to support. The most striking discovery was the appearance of long, straight stone boundaries beneath the surface. Natural rock formations rarely produce such regular shapes, yet several sections displayed surprisingly consistent edges. Researchers also identified what appeared to be a geometric arrangement, with multiple underground features aligned along a common direction, instead of being scattered randomly. Adding to the mystery, several areas produced dense underground anomalies whose physical properties differed noticeably from the surrounding rock and soil. These findings immediately prompted the team to suspend excavation once again. Rather than continuing to dig, researchers carried out additional surveys using multiple instruments and independent verification methods. Their goal was simple: determine whether these remarkable signals represented a naturally occurring geological formation, or the first real evidence of a carefully constructed underground chamber hidden beneath Oak Island. If you'd like, I can also rewrite the next section in the same cinematic documentary-style flow so the entire script feels consistently original. The evidence that shifted the investigation researchers carefully compared decades of historical mapping with the latest underground survey data. What stood out immediately was the remarkable consistency. Every new scan pointed toward nearly the same location and revealed similar underground features. It was no longer a single unexplained reading. Multiple independent sources of evidence were beginning to support the same conclusion. Because of this, several scientists argued that the anomaly could not be dismissed as a simple geological formation. They explained that natural rock rarely produces such well-defined boundaries, repeated geometric patterns, and concentrated dense anomalies all in the same area. Even so, many experts urged caution. They emphasized that no matter how convincing the data appeared, scientific standards required physical excavation, laboratory analysis, and independent verification before any theory could be accepted as fact. The findings that changed everything. After weeks of repeated surveys, the investigation team reached an important decision. Surface scans alone were no longer enough to answer the growing number of questions. New boreholes were drilled directly into the locations where the strongest underground anomalies had been detected. Every rock fragment and soil sample was carefully documented, sealed, and transported for laboratory examination. At the same time, researchers extracted deep core samples, allowing them to study each underground layer without disturbing the surrounding area. The first laboratory results appeared routine. However, as additional samples arrived from greater depths, a much more intriguing picture began to emerge. Across multiple layers, researchers identified similar density variations, unusual stone formations, and repeating patterns aligned in the same direction. Even more significant, these observations were not limited to a single drilling location. Boreholes from different parts of the site produced strikingly similar results. The team then compared the laboratory findings with the underground scan data. The correlation was difficult to ignore. Areas that had displayed geometric shapes during scanning were now being supported by borehole and core sample evidence. For the first time, multiple scientific methods were pointing toward the possibility of a large underground structure. Even with this growing evidence, the researchers refused to rush forward. Every sample was tested again, and specialists from different fields independently reviewed the results to eliminate the possibility of error. If a massive stone chamber or sealed vault truly existed beneath the island, one careless excavation could destroy priceless historical evidence forever. At this point, the investigation had entered a completely new phase. The mystery was no longer whether something unusual existed underground, but what that hidden structure actually was. Could it be the legendary treasure vault? As months of research passed, one question began dominating every discussion. Had the investigation finally led researchers to the hidden treasure vault that generations had searched for? Interestingly, that had never been the team's original goal. Their initial objective was simply to understand why the same underground anomalies kept appearing in repeated surveys. But as new information continued arriving from scans, boreholes, and laboratory testing, the conversation gradually shifted. Researchers first focused on an area where underground mapping suggested the outline of an enclosed stone structure. In several locations, the data resembled the shape of a chamber hidden beneath the surface. Additional scans hinted that the structure might be surrounded by thick stone walls, raising the possibility that it had been intentionally sealed. Some specialists even proposed that a smaller chamber or passage could be connected to the larger structure, although no physical evidence has yet confirmed that idea. These possibilities quickly fueled debate. Supporters of the theory argued that the combined evidence suggested more than an ordinary underground cavity. If the interpretations proved correct, the structure could represent a carefully constructed human-made chamber. Meanwhile, historians revisited long-standing theories connected to Oak Island, including suggestions involving ancient storage chambers, hidden vaults, and even the legendary Knights Templar. However, they stressed that these ideas remain speculative and have not been verified through scientific evidence. The investigation team remained cautious throughout the process. They repeatedly stated that no single explanation would be accepted until physical excavation, laboratory confirmation, and independent scientific review had been completed. Despite the differing opinions, most experts agreed on one important point. If a sealed stone chamber truly exists beneath Oak Island, opening it could become the most significant breakthrough in the island's 230-year search. The excavation finally begins. Following months of detailed research, repeated underground surveys, borehole drilling, laboratory testing, and scientific review, the moment everyone had been waiting for finally arrived. After carefully evaluating every report, the team approved a controlled excavation at the location where the strongest underground signals had consistently appeared. The atmosphere across Oak Island was unlike anything seen before. Researchers, engineers, archaeologists, and support crews all understood they might be standing closer than anyone in history to solving one of the world's greatest treasure mysteries. As daylight broke, heavy machinery rolled into position alongside drilling equipment and specialized safety vehicles. Despite the presence of powerful machines, caution remained the highest priority. Excavators removed only carefully measured layers of soil, while archaeologists followed closely behind, inspecting every newly exposed section by hand. Whenever an unusual stone alignment, fragment of old timber, or possible structural feature appeared, excavation stopped immediately so the area could be documented before work continued. Safety specialists constantly monitored ground stability, aware that underground voids could collapse without warning. Water detection systems remained active throughout the operation in case hidden tunnels or flooded chambers were encountered. Strict procedures governed every stage of the excavation. Any new discovery had to be photographed, mapped, measured, and reviewed before another layer of earth could be removed. Slowly, the soil gave way. Hour after hour, anticipation continued to build as the excavation moved deeper underground. Every member of the team was focused on a single question: what was waiting beneath the surface? A discovery no one saw coming. Then, after hours of painstaking excavation, everything changed. As another carefully controlled layer of earth was removed, activity across the site came to an abrupt halt. This version keeps the facts and suspense intact while using new wording, smoother transitions, and a more cinematic documentary style that feels original rather than paraphrased. The moment everything came to a halt. Then, without warning, something beneath the surface brought the entire operation to an immediate stop. The excavator operator shut down the engine within seconds. Moments earlier, the site had echoed with the sound of heavy machinery. Now, an almost complete silence settled over the excavation area as every member of the team turned their attention to a single point in the ground. Emerging slowly from the surrounding soil was an unusually large stone feature. Its appearance immediately caught the attention of the archaeologists because it looked noticeably different from the natural rock formations nearby. As they carefully brushed away the remaining soil by hand, one straight edge became visible. A short time later, another connected edge appeared beside it. The shape suggested that this was more than an isolated stone. It looked as though part of a much larger underground structure was beginning to reveal itself. Excavation stopped immediately. Engineers, archaeologists, and geologists gathered around the discovery. The exposed section was photographed from every possible angle. Laser measurements were taken, and the location was mapped once again to ensure every detail was accurately recorded. No one had expected such evidence to appear this early in the excavation. Several researchers stood quietly studying the exposed stone because its position closely matched the underground anomalies detected during months of scientific surveys. Even so, the team refused to make any dramatic announcements. They explained that exposing only a small portion of the structure was not enough to determine its true nature. Its full size, purpose, and whether it formed part of a sealed chamber could only be established through additional excavation, laboratory analysis, and independent scientific review. Still, everyone present understood one important fact. Something significant lay hidden beneath Oak Island, and whatever it was, it deserved careful investigation. Scientists call for evidence, not assumptions. As news of the discovery spread, people around the world began asking the same question. Had the centuries-old Oak Island mystery finally reached its answer? While treasure enthusiasts celebrated the discovery as a historic breakthrough, the scientific community remained far more cautious. Researchers emphasized that uncovering an underground structure does not automatically prove the existence of a hidden treasure vault. Because of that, the excavation slowed once again. Every fragment of stone, every piece of wood, and every material recovered from the site was carefully cataloged, sealed, and sent to specialized laboratories for detailed examination. Whenever wooden material was recovered, preparations were made for carbon dating to determine its age. Stone samples and other materials also underwent laboratory testing to establish whether they had formed naturally or had been shaped by human activity. The investigation didn't rely on a single laboratory. The collected evidence was distributed to independent specialists so multiple scientific teams could analyze the same material separately. Only if their conclusions agreed would the findings be considered reliable. This careful process follows the standard approach used in major archaeological investigations around the world, helping researchers avoid mistakes or premature conclusions. Scientists pointed out that history contains many examples where exciting early discoveries eventually received entirely different explanations after further testing. For that reason, they insisted that no claim, regardless of how extraordinary, should be accepted without strong scientific evidence. Even if the discussion involved a structure potentially worth hundreds of millions of dollars, the final conclusion would be based on evidence alone. However, one possibility was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. If laboratory analysis, carbon dating, and independent verification supported the evidence collected so far, the investigation could mark one of the most important moments in Oak Island's long history. Theories begin spreading across the world. As reports of the discovery reached the public, speculation grew rapidly. Many treasure hunters described it as the greatest breakthrough in more than 230 years of searching. They believed that if a sealed underground chamber truly existed beneath the island, it might finally explain the mystery that had fascinated generations. Some even referred to it as the legendary $250 million treasure vault. At the same time, experts urged the public not to jump to conclusions. Historians noted that old documents and long-standing stories connected with Oak Island have inspired many different interpretations over the years. Some researchers suggested the site may once have served as a secure storage location for valuable objects.